So again, everybody, welcome to today's talk on youth and young adults in business. And we're going to take the next 45 minutes or so, and we're going to be talking about business, obviously. We're going to be talking about what some of the advantages are of being in your own business. Maybe some of the parents here today already are, or maybe some of the youth already are too. So you'll definitely be able to appreciate these things. We're also going to be talking about how you can get involved in business, how you can get started, maybe come up with an idea if you're not sure. I have a few suggestions, and there's a lot more suggestions on my website that you can definitely check out. And because this is a Christian conference and because I am a Christian, we're going to talk about how to run a business in a godly way. How can you run a business in a way that would be pleasing to God? So that's really going to be the underlying theme today, and that's got to be the most important thing as Christians. Am I right? Okay. So let's get started here. So my name is Jason Lindsay again. I'm the owner, along with my wife. She's such an important part of the business and an important part of my life. And so we're partners in this thing. And I've actually been self-employed for the last 15 years. I've done a lot of different things. In addition to this business, I'm also a financial advisor. I've been doing that for 15 years. I'm a university tutor. I've been tutoring accounting and finance courses for the last 7 years. And I do a little bit of bookkeeping on the side. So I'm kind of a numbers guy, but I love being in business. And that's why we're going to be talking about that today. Now, I come from a place far, far away in the province of Nova Scotia, in a place just outside of Halifax, across the harbor as a matter of fact, and it's called Dartmouth. Maybe some of you have visited there before. It's really a very lovely place to visit, especially if you enjoy winter in May. Okay. Here's a picture of my family. And you can see myself and my beautiful wife, Christina, and there's our dog, Maggie. Now, notice there's no children in the picture, and you might be thinking, well, we're at a homeschool conference right now. Why are there no kids? Well, the fact is we keep our kids locked in the basement. No, seriously, though, we haven't been able to have any. God has not blessed us with kids to this point, but we are going through the adoption process. So if any parents out here today have some kids you're looking to get rid of, we're looking. And there's our dog Maggie at the bottom. You can see how she's smiling. I actually told her before we took the picture, I said, Maggie, if you smile, I'll give you some dog treats after. And of course she's there smiling, but then I didn't give her any dog treats and she tried to bite me. But so although we don't have any children to homeschool at the moment, we do homeschool our animals. We have a couple of cats in addition to the dog. I don't know where the cats are right now, probably locked in the basement. And but our dog Maggie, we do homeschool her. And she's not very strong in math, but she does excel in pooping on the lawn and vomiting on the carpet. Before we get into the real nuts and bolts of being in business, guys, I want to talk a little bit about my story. So I grew up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. When I was in high school, it was always my dream to be in my own business. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just could kind of envision myself sitting up in one of those big office buildings with my feet up on the desk telling people what to do. But I really wasn't sure what industry I wanted to work in. And at that point in my life, I wasn't very confident at all. Maybe some of you here can relate to that. I was a very shy person. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't feel comfortable in front of groups. And I got into university. I went to Dalhousie University and I graduated back in 2000 with a Bachelor of Commerce, and my major was accounting. And the reason I chose accounting is because I was a part of the a co-op program in the commerce program, and that meant that I had to work 3 different work terms. And I didn't get a job until almost the very end, the very deadline, and I had to just sort of take whatever I could get, and I managed to get a job as an accounting clerk at a car dealership. And so I worked there for a few months, and then my next work term came up. Same thing happened. I didn't get a job till the very end, and I had to take another accounting job. Didn't really like accounting all that much, but I took it anyway. And then by my 3rd work term, because I'd already done 2 accounting work terms, I thought, well, why not do a 3rd? And that's what I did. I chose my major as accounting. I graduated. I went to work for a small company in a place called Eastern Passage, just outside of Dartmouth, where I grew up. And I worked there for about 9 months. I worked there for somebody else as a bookkeeper, as an accounting clerk. And I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really like what I was getting paid. I thought I was worth a little bit more than that. I didn't really appreciate let's just say I didn't appreciate a lot of the people I worked with as far as how they acted and how they spoke and that kind of thing. And so I didn't want to continue there, so I left that job and I started work as a financial advisor. I was working for another company, but I was working for myself. I was contracted out by that company. And so that was really how I got started working for myself in my own business. And I'm very glad that I got to that point because I've learned so many great things working for myself. And you know what, if you're here today and you're thinking, you know, you're thinking maybe that you want to work for somebody else, I mean, that's okay if you do. I don't want you guys to go home, and if you're a young person here today, I don't want you to go home and tell your dad that Jason Lindsay said working for somebody else sucks, because it really doesn't, okay? There's some benefits to that as well, but I'm here to talk about business today. And so I'm glad I got a chance to do that. But you know what? When I first started in business, I remember I had to do a little bit of public speaking. You guys like public speaking? Isn't that one of the things that people fear the most a lot of times? I remember at one of my first public speaking engagements that I had, I was standing at the front and my knees were shaking like this. Anybody can relate, right? And you're nervous and you don't really know what to say. And you don't know if people are going to want to listen to you. But you know what? I did it and I felt a little bit more comfortable about it. And then I did it again and I felt a little bit more comfortable. And I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And I kept getting better at what I did. And that really hit home for me because I saw, you know what? I'm capable of doing a lot more, of course, with God's help, right? God made us unique individuals, given us different skills and different traits, and I think we can use those to glorify Him in business. So why entrepreneurship? Why would somebody want to work in their own business? Well, I think there's a few different reasons. One is working for yourself. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else. There's nothing wrong with having a boss. Some bosses aren't that great, but there's a lot of bosses that are great. Okay, and I'm not trying to begrudge anybody that's doing that now. Keep doing it if you love it. That's okay. But there is something about being able to create something yourself and be able to market a product or a service to somebody else, I think. You know, it's something that we can take pride in as entrepreneurs. We can be in control of what we do. And when you work for yourself, you can make the rules. I don't know if anybody out there here today has ever worked for a company where maybe the boss or your supervisor asked you to do something that wasn't completely honest. And maybe there's a little bit of a dilemma there. Should I do it or should I not? Well, we know as Christians, of course, if it's dishonest, we definitely shouldn't do it. But that can kind of create a little bit of tension in the workplace, and when somebody has certain expectations of you, and you're saying, you know, I'm not going to do that. I want to be honest about the way I run my life. How about doing something you enjoy? You know, I think we all have interests and things that we love to do. Well, how about being able to build a business around that? Wouldn't that be great? I mean, I think there's people out there that do things that they don't really enjoy doing. And they dread going to work each day, but imagine if you were able to take an interest that you have and build a business around that. For instance, if you're the kind of person that likes sports, why not start a company that maybe helps young people in sports or become a coach or something like that? I mean, there's a lot of things we can do that, that we can enjoy, and being able to turn that into a business and maybe even be able to make a living at it, or at least make some extra part-time income. How about learning valuable skills? This is one of the greatest things I think about being in business for yourself. And you won't really appreciate it until you actually do it. The things that you're going to learn are amazing. And they're things that you can take with you no matter what you do. For example, being able to communicate with others. Would you agree there's a lot of people out there that, especially when they're young, and maybe you can think back to when you were younger, if you're an older person right now, you can think back and you're doing things that you weren't comfortable doing, but you kept doing it and you got a little bit better. And I think working for yourself, you're going to learn the kind of skills that you can take with you no matter where you work in life, whether it be business or not. How about potential for growth? Being able to build your business as big as you would like to build it. See, that's one of the problems sometimes when you're working as an employee, okay? You might be capped at the amount of money that you can make, and you might be capped at the amount of advancement that you can make. And, to be honest, it's really in somebody else's hands, isn't it? But when you work for yourself, you can, if you have a good business and you're working in the right market and you're working hard and you're doing it to glorify God, you can grow that business as big as you would like it to be. How about flexible schedule? That's a great thing, I think. I know for me, there's been a lot of things that that I have liked to do in the past that if I was working for somebody else, I probably wouldn't be able to do, because my schedule would have been dependent on what my boss said I could take as vacation. And I had to kind of follow the schedule of the company that I worked for. But when you work for yourself, you have that kind of flexibility. And you know what the most important thing about that would be? Being able to honor the Sabbath, I think. Have you or anybody that you know ever been forced, or maybe not forced, but you felt like you needed to work on a Sunday? Does that happen to anybody here? Right? Maybe when you didn't want to? Well, when you make your own schedule, you don't have to worry about that. How about getting the family involved? Running a family business? I mean, I've heard some people say in the past, man, I could never work with my wife. I got enough of her at home. But you know what? I look at my wife and I say, I love this woman. Why wouldn't I want to work with her? Why wouldn't I want to spend more time with her? Does that make sense, guys? If you have kids, imagine working with your spouse, getting your kids involved, bringing your kids up from when they're very young, teaching them the ins and outs of the business, having them gain confidence, having them gain different skills. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to do? How about creating something that can be passed on? The thing is, when you work in a job and you die, well, that job just goes to somebody else. But imagine being able to create a business that's successful, making money, and when you die, you can pass it along to your children. And they can run the business and pass it along to their children. And there's a lot of companies out there like that. You can create that legacy. How about tax advantages? Anybody here like paying taxes? But we pay a lot of taxes in Canada, don't we? We're one of the most highly taxed countries in the whole world. But what a lot of people don't realize is when you work for yourself, there are certain tax advantages to doing that. Anybody in the room have a cell phone? Everybody's got a cell phone, right? Well, when you work in a job, you can't deduct that on your income taxes. But everyone's got one. You're paying $50, $80, $100 a month, whatever it is. Imagine if that amount that you paid is tax deductible. That means you can subtract it off your income, lowers your income. You save income taxes because you have that. Well, what about if you're working out of your home? Some of the tax advantages that you have, because you're maybe paying a mortgage, you're paying utilities, you're paying different things like that. And I know with some of these tax advantages, I realize I'm speaking more to the adults here today, but you young folks will appreciate that in a few more years when you get out in the workforce and you're working for somebody else and you look at your paycheck and you thought you were getting $1,000 and you're only getting $700 and you're wondering what's going on because all that money's going to the government, right? That's what's happening. So these are just a few of the advantages of being involved in your own business. And I've been able to take advantage of every one of those. It's just been an amazing thing. Well, what does it take to be in business for yourself? Well, I think first of all, you got to have a good idea. You got to come up with an idea that people want to take advantage of. Sometimes you'll look at an old marketing book or something and it'll say, well, what you want to do if you want to start your own business is you want to find a need and provide something to fill that need. I would even state that a little bit differently. Find a need or even find a want. There's a lot of things we don't need, isn't there? Do we need cell phones? I mean, sometimes with the work that we do, maybe, right? Do we need 50-inch televisions? We don't need those things, do we? But we want them. And if you can create something that people want, whether that be a product or a service, that's really what business is all about. So you got to come up with an idea. And I have a few suggestions later and some different ways you can take advantage of to be able to come up with an idea if you're not sure what you might want to do. But you also got to have a game plan. You got to know who is your market. Who are you marketing to? How much time do you want to spend on your business? Maybe you have an income goal or an income need that you need to accomplish. How are you going to grow your business? Those are all things that are really important. How about a willingness to get uncomfortable? This is really key. I heard somebody say once, in order to be great at something, you first have to be good. And in order to be good at something, you first have to be bad. And in order to be bad at something, you first have to try. And we might chuckle a little bit about that when we hear it, but it's exactly true. Because there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm no good at it. Of course you're no good at it. You haven't done it yet. Why would you be good at it? How can you be good at it? If you look at a professional athlete over there, were they born? Did they come out of their mother's womb playing sports immediately? That's not how that works. So how do we get good at something that we haven't done before? We do it. And we do it again. And we do it again. And we keep doing it. And we get a little bit better. And we figure out what doesn't work. And we change direction. And we figure out what does work. And we keep doing it. And we keep getting better. And that's the key. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. People don't want to get uncomfortable. Because you know what? In business, you got to be uncomfortable. And what your uncomfortable thing would be maybe talking to people, communicating with people. I mean, I think back to my own life, and I mentioned this earlier. I was afraid to talk to people. Well, you know what? The only way you're going to get over that is to go talk to people. Would you guys agree with that? How about hard work? You guys, the youth here today, you guys like hard work? This is yes. This is no. You guys like hard work? At least you're being honest. That's good. I like that. But you know what? Hard work is important. What does the Bible say about hard work? What if we look in Proverbs? Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. What's a sluggard? Somebody who's being lazy, right? I was very lazy when I was a youth. Okay, I'll be very honest and upfront with you about that. I was very lazy. I did not want to work at all. It just seemed like a major chore. But that wasn't good, right? And we can really look to Proverbs to see what it says about how we should live our lives. There's a lot of great advice in there. You need to look at the ants. See, the ants are always working. They're always carrying stuff around and moving stuff around. Okay, we need to store up for the future, right? How about belief in what you do? If you're marketing a product or service to somebody, shouldn't you believe in that? Should it be something that you yourself would take advantage of or you would buy? Definitely, right? How do you think it's going to look if you're out there marketing something and you don't even like it for yourself? Would that look very good, guys? Definitely not. How about a great attitude? I mean, obviously, when it comes to attitude, we want to be positive and we want to be upbeat and we want to be friendly and smiling and that kind of thing, right? But I think it's a lot more than that when we talk about attitude. Let's read this. What does Jesus say? He who is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he who governs as he who serves. What this is talking about here, guys, is being a servant to others. And we saw, obviously Jesus came to earth, and he did that. He served. That's what he did. And that's, obviously we can't do anything near what he did. But when we're in business for ourselves, we should think of ourselves as servants. How can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I make your life better? Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. When you're doing something, even if you're working for somebody else, you don't really like the job, we should do it with a joyful heart. Ask yourself, are the things you're doing now in your life, are you doing it with joy in your hearts? Even if you don't like it. That's the kind of attitude that we have to have. Does that make sense, guys? The biggest one, faith in God. We need to understand that God is in control of everything. And, He gives us certain skills and certain abilities that we can use in our life. And we got to go out and take advantage of those. But any success that we have is not because of us. It's not. It's because God had that in His plans for us. Right? So we have to look to God in all of this. There's a lot of people out there that might say, I know God's in control of everything, but I'm the one that did all the work. Well, He only did all the work because He gave you the means to do it. And we've got to recognize that. We've got to be grateful for what He's given us, and we've got to be good stewards of what He's given us and put those skills and abilities to good use. Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. That's how we want to be living our life. And it's not even about business at this point, right? This applies to everything, doesn't it? The way we talk to people in our homes and the way we interact with others and in the work that we do and in our spiritual life. Everything should be to the glory of God. He's the one that has given us life. He's the one that we need to show gratitude, and we need to look to Him and trust in Him. The biggest roadblock, fear. You can see that little picture of me on the floor there. What does fear mean? Well, false evidence appearing real is one acronym that I've known for quite some time. See, people are looking at all these things, and a lot of times those things don't happen. Haven't you noticed that? The things that you worry about and the things that you're afraid of often just don't happen. You look at a little kid, maybe they're afraid of dogs. The dog's probably not going to bite them, right? But they fear the dog, will, right? And, we look at the little child and we say, you know what, you don't need to be afraid of the dog. But then, as we're older, when we're in our teenage years, or we're young adults, or we're adult, whatever it is, we still get afraid of things. But we need to take that same advice and apply it to our own lives, right? Those things probably aren't going to happen, but you know what? It doesn't even matter if they do happen. Because what does God say about fear? What does He say? Does He say we should fear? It's okay to fear? Do you guys know that in 365 different places in the Bible, it says, do not fear? Do you guys know that? If the scriptures say one thing that we should be doing, we should take that seriously, right? If it's said once. But if it's said 365 times, how much more should we follow that advice, right? So what do we need to do? We need to face everything and respond with God's help, right? We need to look to God and trust in God. Are you guys with me on this? You guys are a very quiet crowd. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. See, we fear things in our life, but we need to ask God to help us with those things. I mean, you want to have the kind of attitude where you say, you know what, God, it doesn't matter what happens in my life. Whether things go well, I'm going to praise your name. Whether things go badly, I'm still going to praise your name. Anyone here seen Facing the Giants? It's a good movie, huh? Do you remember when the coach, when he kind of had that revelation and he changed his team's format? That's what he told the team, right? If we win, we're going to praise your name. If we lose, we're going to praise your name, Lord. Right? That's the kind of attitude we have. And when we put it in God's hands, we don't need to fear. Because when we can trust that He's going to take care of us, and even though things may not go well now, we know later, after we die, we're going to be in heaven. Right? Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you. That's what we need to do. So when you're in business and you're starting out, you're scared because you don't know what's going to happen. You're scared because you don't know if you can do it. Trust in the Lord. That's what we need to do. Put it in His hands. It's His business. We're just running it for Him. How can somebody come up with ideas? Sometimes that's a big thing. I talk to people sometimes and they say, you know what? I love the idea of business. I've always wanted to be in business for myself, but I don't really know what I can do. And that's cool. Well, think about the hobbies that you have right now. A lot of times you might be able to take a hobby that you have and turn it into a business. I used to play a lot of sports when I was younger, before this. And why not, maybe if you're in that same position, if you're involved in sport, and you're a young person, why not start up a sports group for other homeschooling students? Something like that. Just get them active, like kind of run a gym class, that type of thing. I know there's other things out there. Sometimes there's swimming lessons for homeschool and things like that, right? But this is just to get you thinking of some ideas, right? How about look at the different skills that you have. Some people are good at music. Maybe teaching others how to play an instrument could be something you might take advantage of. What about computer skills? Maybe helping people with computers somehow, right? How about a course you've already taken? I talked to somebody, I was at a conference in Ottawa recently, and I was talking to a young lady. She was very good at math. And she had gone through some high school math courses in her homeschooling, and she became a tutor. And I can appreciate that because I was good at accounting. That's one of the things I even currently do, right? I teach people accounting and finance. How about developing a better mousetrap? There's been a lot of things that have been invented over the years, guys, where people took something that was already in existence and they just learned to make it better. Make it work more effectively, make it more cost effective. There's been a lot of things like that, right? When we look around, we can sometimes identify those things. We don't always need to just accept what's out there and say this is the way it's going to be. I realize we're running very short on time. Is that the right time? Okay, we got about 5 minutes here. I'm just going to talk faster, so listen fast. Okay? So what are some business ideas? Shoveling snow, mowing lawns, landscaping, selling baked goods in your neighborhood. This is one I think that somebody could really take advantage of. And I've been thinking about this one for a while, not for myself, because I'm not, well, I can bake a little bit, but that's not really my thing right now. But imagine a young person who enjoys baking, and they bake some cookies or they bake some muffins, and they take it around to their neighborhood, knock on doors. Would that be scary? Maybe, right? But do it anyway. Okay? Knock on doors, offer people free samples. And say, you know what, I'm going to come back in a week. I'll give you this sheet that you can fill in. Tell me what you want. We'll set up a contract. And I'll come back every week and I'll deliver, a dozen muffins. Right? Something like that. How about painting? Farm-based activities. I know maybe in this area especially, not so much where I'm from in Halifax, but there's a lot of farms around, and maybe there's some farmers in this room right now. I think there's a lot of things you can do with that. Pickup and delivery for seniors, right? Piano lessons, we talked about that. So how can you get started? Well, how about just talking to your friends and family? Share with them what it is that you do, or what it is that you'd like to be doing. Just tell them. If you have credibility with them and people see that you're serious about what you're going to do, and they can get on board with that, right? Send an email to your church. Let people know what you're doing. Build a web page. I didn't know anything about websites before I started this business, and there's a lot of different platforms that one can use to build a website out there. I know for me, I used Weebly. It's a very easy program to use. Somebody in junior high could do it. Post on Facebook, right? Anyone here on Facebook? Everyone's on Facebook. Okay, word of caution, avoid the prosperity gospel. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we're very short on time. But have you guys heard of the prosperity gospel? There are teachers out there that will teach you that you need to put your requests out to the universe, and the universe will provide you with whatever you want. Before I was a Christian, I was only saved 7 years ago. I grew up in a very liberal church that didn't teach the gospel. But before I was a Christian, I used to be very involved in The Secret. Anyone heard of that? I would really urge you to stay away from that. Because what that says is whatever you want, if you focus on it and channel your mind towards that, you will have it. Riches. Relationships. Personal possessions. That's the kind of thing you want to stay away from. There's nothing wrong, guys, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having things and being wealthy, if that's what God's plan is for you. But He may not bless you with that, and that's okay. You have to be content with that. That's what the Bible says. Here's one thing that The Secret teaches, that a man can change himself and master his own destiny is the conclusion of every mind who is wide awake to the power of right thoughts. Our thoughts become things is what they teach. Stay away from that teaching. What does the Bible say about that? Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell and make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. I mean, we might die tomorrow. That's sad to think about, but that actually might happen. Am I right? We don't know what God has in store for us, right? So when we talk about what we're going to do, we should say, Lord willing, right? If the Lord wills that we do that, then that's what we will do. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this and that. That's the rest of that passage. Let's look at a few famous young entrepreneurs. Anyone know Mark Zuckerberg? What did he invent? Facebook, right? I don't know if he's a Christian, but it just shows what's possible when you're young, right? I think he was in university when he created the company. He's a billionaire now. How about this guy? Most people have heard of Thomas Edison. Had over 1,000 U.S. patents. But you know what? When he was 12 years old, he ran his own newspaper. Do you guys know that? And he worked on a train. Okay? There is a lot of different things that we can do if we want to be in business for ourselves. And age does not have to be a limiting factor. It really doesn't, guys. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. Are you willing to get your hands dirty? I hope you are. But you know what? Whether you get involved in business, or whether you work for somebody else, which is okay, you need to work hard. You need to do it to God's glory. You need to trust in Him. But I'm afraid, trusting God. But I'm not sure I can do it, trusting God. but I'm not sure if people would want what I offer. Trusting God. Not sure I have the time. Trusting God. I'm not a good student. That's okay. Trusting God, because you know what? There's a lot of successful people out there that weren't necessarily academically strong. I know a lot of people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and even millions in my connections in the financial services world. And some of them didn't even graduate high school. I know some of them didn't even get out of junior high. And they're worth millions. And it's not all about the money. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I'm saying you can accomplish these kinds of things if God wills it, right? Okay, well, what if I'm a very good student? Well, that's okay too. I'm not saying that if you're academically strong, you're not going to be successful in business. The point is you can be successful no matter what your situation is, if it's God's plan for you. Not sure I want to be in business. You know what? That reason keeps a lot of people from getting involved in their own business. But you know what I say to that? Even if you're not sure you want to be in business, why don't you give it a shot? Give it a try. At very worst, you'll figure out something that you don't want to do, and you can cross that off your list and go do something else. But what if it is something that you fall in love with, and you want to keep doing it? You say, you know what, I think this is where God wants me to be, and I know that I can have success with this. Give it a shot. Worst case scenario is you'll learn some valuable skills and figure out something you don't want to do. Maybe make a few bucks even. But I'm not a Christian. I mean, obviously I've talked a lot about trusting in God today. And I'm not saying that you can only be successful in business if you're a Christian. There's clearly a lot of people out there that are successful businessmen and aren't Christians. I can name one that I hear a lot about in the news these days. Anyway, I won't get into all that. But you know what? I think if you're not a Christian, you need to come to God. And if you find me later at my booth, I'd be happy to share the gospel with you, or you can talk to your friends or family. I mean, this is a Christian conference, but maybe there's some unbelievers here today. And I have a heart for that. And I look at my own situation and see that I lived 30 years of my life without God. And I don't want that for you. So if you're struggling with that, if you're not walking with the Lord, you need to come to Him. I wanted to leave a few minutes for question and answer, but unfortunately we don't have time. I just want to thank you all for coming, and I have to say, guys, out of all the public speaking engagements that I've ever done, you guys, by far, have been the most recent. Thank you very much.